Okay, in this video I'm going to take a look at some books that I would strongly recommend are well worth your while reading and consuming and paying attention to. These are books, my personal sort of favourites, or books that I could certainly identify and say that they have made a difference to me and a difference to the way that I view things and a difference to the way that I think about things and so on and so forth. I'm not sure how many books I'm going to have in this list. I'd probably aim for at least 5, maybe more. I have been asked a couple of times on my YouTube channel to do some sort of a video about the books that I would have enjoyed and would have found perhaps influential, not just enjoyed, but found influential. So in no particular order, I'm going to start the video here, but I will be popping in and out. Obviously you're going to see different settings and so forth as I do it, as I make the video. But the first video, or the first book that I would like to just talk about, is a book by a gentleman called Dr. Robert Cialdini, and it's called The Psychology of Influence. And in psychology, or the psychology of influence and the psychology of persuasion, just to be clear, the title of the book is Influence, the Psychology of Persuasion. Dr. Robert Cialdini is a proper psychologist or psychiatrist, and has done quite a lot of research in this whole area of persuasion in an American university. But he's produced this book, The 7 Principles of Persuasion. He's set out in it. He has really looked at the various principles, arrived at these principles, having carried out a lot of study over, say, 3 decades, 30 years or so. There are 7 principles of persuasion set out in Cialdini's book, Dr. Robert Cialdini. I think he's still alive. And they are: 1, self-interest; 2, consistency; 3, reciprocation; 4, social proof; 5, authority; 6, liking; and 7, scarcity. Now, in terms of persuasion and the science of persuasion, we all need to persuade. Whether you are looking for a new job, whether you're looking for a pay rise, whether you're looking to build a business, whether you're looking to develop a business, whether you're looking to get new clients, whether you're looking to persuade an adjudicator at the WRC, whether you're looking to persuade a mediator perhaps in the workplace, whether you're looking to persuade a judge in court, we all need to persuade. Cialdini's book looks at 7 principles, and these principles, which I have applied fairly assiduously since I came across them about 5, 6, 7 years ago, work incredibly effectively and are genuinely fundamentals of persuasion. And the book I would strongly recommend. Now, I'm just looking there at the moment. It's on Amazon at £6.76. That's for the paperback. I presume the Kindle version is probably cheaper. So for less than a tenner, you will get a book which has the distilled knowledge and research about the science of persuasion, carried out by a respected academic over a period of perhaps 30 years of teaching and research and so forth. So that's a book that I would strongly recommend. Influence, the Psychology of Persuasion, Dr. Robert Cialdini. And I will put a link down below in the description on YouTube to all of the books that I'm going to mention and discuss. Dr. Robert Cialdini is the gentleman's name. It was first published in February of 2007, and it has an absolute massive amount of 5-star, 4-star, 5-star ratings there on Amazon, I see. But that's the first book that I would strongly recommend. It's worth your while. And in terms of books generally, what I would say is that for the sake of, or for the cost of €5, €7, €8, €9, €10, if you're buying, for example, Kindle or ebooks, and you're getting the Kindle versions, you're looking at buying the distilled knowledge and experience and research of perhaps somebody's entire life's work for the sake of, or for the cost of less than a tenner. So that's why I am an avid reader, and why I'm such a strong advocate of reading as a very good idea. Anyway, that's the first book, Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion, by Robert B. Cialdini, PhD. Second book that I recommend as a life changer, perhaps, certainly will change your outlook, and hopefully it'll change your outlook. If you do allow it to let you change your outlook, then I think it's a good idea. It's called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor E. Frankl. Frankl was a Viennese psychiatrist, but he was a Jew, and he was sent to a number of concentration camps during the Second World War. He lost his entire family, his wife, his father, his mother, his brother, and his children all died in concentration camps. Only he and his sister survived. He noticed something when he was in the concentration camps, and that was that the people who did best in Auschwitz were those who actually comforted others and who gave away their last piece of bread. They survived the longest. And this, for Frankl, offered proof that everything can be taken away from us except the ability to choose our attitude in any given set of circumstances. It's a fabulous book, but the one lesson I take from this book is this. You can't choose your circumstances. You can't choose your facts. You can't choose where you find yourself, but you can choose how you respond, how you react to your circumstances, to your surroundings, to where you find yourself. You can choose. This is a powerful, powerful book. Viktor Frankl, I see he obtained a pilot's license when he was 67 years of age. He passed away there a few years ago in 1997. He died in Vienna. But he's a professor of neurology and psychiatry at the University of Vienna Medical School. And this book, The Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor E. Frankl, is one that I would strongly recommend. Again, you can get the Kindle edition for 99 pence. So, again, a lifetime of knowledge and learning and so on. A book to cherish is this book. And so that's the second one that I like to just refer to. I'm not doing these books in any particular order. Again, this fellow was a professor of neurology and psychiatry. I'm not doing them in any particular order, but this one is definitely one which will give you sort of a roadmap or an outline of Okay, the next significant book or books that I would recommend started with this one. Started with Bleak House by Charles Dickens, and I see this book for me as being a sort of a gateway drug. By that I mean it opened up a whole genre of literature, Victorian literature, including the likes of Thomas Hardy, Anthony Trollope, Jane Austen, George Eliot, Leo Tolstoy, and then leading on to other great authors such as Georges Simenon, Raymond Chandler, Honoré de Balzac, and all of this, especially the Victorian literature, I really enjoy, but I never would have read any Dickens book except this. Bleak House was recommended to me as being a book you should read if you're interested in the law, and obviously being interested in the law at the time that I received the recommendation, I started on it and I persisted with it and I persevered, and initially I didn't find it that accessible, and I didn't find the writing style of Dickens and other Victorians, quite frankly, very accessible, but I grew to like it and I grew to love it and I grew to appreciate it over time, and now I'd say I've read everything that Dickens has written. I'd say I've read everything that Thomas Hardy has written, Anthony Trollope, Jane Austen, George Eliot, and so on. As I say, they led then to other great writers like Leo Tolstoy, and there's French writers then as well that I got into, like Émile Zola. And Émile Zola wrote a book called Germinal, and I strongly recommend that. It's a fabulous book, Germinal. Then I got into other French books, other French authors like Honoré de Balzac and Victor Hugo with Les Miserables. Another line of inquiry, I suppose, in terms of opening up my book reservoir and, you know, the repertoire that I ended up reading would be the likes of this book. This book is called How to Write a Good Advertisement. It's a short course in copywriting, by Victor O. Schwab. It's an excellent book. I don't think you'll get it too handy. I had to get it from America. But I've studied the copywriting books of Victor Schwab, Eugene Schwartz, Gene Hopkins. These are legendaries, or legends in terms of copywriting. And what I mean by copywriting, I'm not meaning the legal term copyright. I'm meaning the term involved for persuasive writing, writing to sell, advertisements, and so on and so forth. These guys were the rock stars of their day, the likes of Schwartz and the likes of Hopkins, who would have been writing ads for newspapers and media and print and TV and so on, and they're absolute geniuses at writing words to persuade people to do things. And if you're a small business owner, that's a very useful skill to develop and understand. So copywriting, Gene Schwartz, I'll put a link down below, perhaps, or Eugene Schwartz and Hopkins. I think Claude Hopkins actually was your man's name. So there's Breakthrough Advertising, and I can't remember the name of the other book. And then there's this book that I'd recommend, Victor O. Schwab, How to Write a Good Advertisement, a short course in copywriting. It's excellent. In terms then of other legal books or legal writing, or reading rather, I would recommend a book by Truman Capote called In Cold Blood, and I would recommend a book called Making Your Case by Antonin Scalia and Brian A. Garner. Scalia was a Supreme Court judge in the United States for many, many years. He died not too long ago, perhaps in the last 10-15 years or so. Making Your Case, it's an excellent book. I bought it on Kindle, and it's very, very good in terms of getting your arguments or your presentations, your submissions ready for the likes of court and so on. And I would have used some of what I read there, what I learnt in that book, for various submissions to the WRC and the Labour Court and so on and so forth. But in general, excellent book in terms of making your case, and some really good anecdotes about the law and so forth. There's two self-help books then that I would make specific reference to. One is Deep Work by a guy called Cal Newport. Deep Work, excellent book, strongly recommend it. It's all about focus. It's all about putting away distractions and doing focused work, doing really concentrated focused work. It's called Deep Work by Cal Newport, and the other book I would strongly recommend is the one to do with controlling your mind and controlling your emotions and so forth, and thinking rationally and being able to control your emotions. And that's a book that I would have the highest regard for, and it is The Chimp Paradox. It's written by United Kingdom, a British lecturer in, I think, psychology or psychiatry or whatever. He teaches in some of the universities, I think in the north of England, perhaps Newcastle or Durham or someplace. But The Chimp Paradox, it's a book that I have found incredibly helpful for me, because we all have a chimp inside us wanting to get out, that does get out from time to time, and we really need to work at controlling our chimp, keeping the chimp under control. And this book sets out the techniques we need to use, and techniques that are helpful, and is a basic reassurance to you or to me that you're not a bad person, that it's the chimp, and it's only a chimp, and you can manage it and control it and so on. In terms then of American authors that I've really enjoyed, Ernest Hemingway, The Old Man and the Sea, strongly recommend that book. Very, very short book. Would strongly recommend it. John Steinbeck, The Grapes of Wrath and so on, really enjoy that. And then for sort of light entertainment, Raymond Chandler and his detective series, his laconic writing style, I really like, really enjoy. And then George Simenon is a Belgian who was a prolific author of detective novels in that genre. If you like that sort of thing, George Simenon is worth looking at. Raymond Chandler is definitely worth looking at. And in terms of developing a writing style that will communicate with people, you should really read Ernest Hemingway and The Old Man and the Sea, because The Old Man and the Sea was a book that, and Hemingway's writing style is a style that would have been recommended to anybody who read the copywriting books. In other words, if you want to persuade people, the greatest number of people, to do stuff on foot of words or by words that you've written, then you really need to use short words, short paragraphs, plenty of white space. And Hemingway was famous for a particular quote, or there was a famous quote of his where he was accused of using simple words, and he only knew $5 words or $10 words. He didn't know the $50 words, and he said something to the effect that he knows plenty of $50 words, but he can make a good story, a great story, using just same simple words and short words, short paragraphs, short sentences. And it's a lesson that we can all take when we are writing anything, whether it's to persuade on our websites, for example, whether it's to persuade in our communication internally in a company, whether it's to persuade at the WRC or anywhere else. Being able to write well and communicate well and persuade is absolutely vital, and the power of that book, The Old Man and the Sea, and the simplicity in the words that he uses. I'd say there isn't 2 words in the book or 10 words in the book that have more than 2 syllables, but it was an eye-opener for me, so I'd recommend that. And speaking of American authors, there's another book that I really, really love. Well, this actually, there's Hemingway's complete book, or a complete collection of short stories. My daughter Lisa brought that home to me from America. I really enjoyed that. One other American book that I recommend is this one. It's Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. Excellent book, beautiful book, beautifully written, and really enjoyed that. I've read that 2 or 3 times. When it comes to investing, then there's a couple of books. There's a famous book by Benjamin Graham called The Intelligent Investor. I have it on my Kindle. Didn't find it that accessible, and it was a little bit inaccessible or a little bit technical. Didn't really enjoy it, but I have enjoyed these 2 books, written by a guy with Irish ancestry, Peter Lynch. So this is One Up on Wall Street. This is Beating the Street. If you understand, read these books, you will enjoy them. They're very accessible. If you read what Lynch has to say, he's a very, very successful fund manager from the United States with Irish genealogy, Irish history, Irish roots. If you read those books, you will understand the basic principles that you need to make a success of investing in shares without a shadow of a doubt. And Lynch's philosophy in both of those books is consistent, so it really doesn't make any difference, I don't think, in which of those books you bet or get, but I would strongly recommend them, and I would strongly recommend the philosophy that he advocates and the principles that he uses for investing in shares and how to invest in shares. Now, there is 2 further books that I want to make reference to. One, both of them to do with baking. One is called Flour, Water, Salt and Yeast by a guy called Ken Forkish. So if you ever thought that you had any interest in baking bread, for example, that book is very, very good, and you can get it on Kindle for 99 cents or maybe €3 or £3 whatever. It's called Flour, Water, Salt and Yeast by Ken Forkish. And I've got one beautiful hardback book, sort of a coffee table book, but I don't use it as a coffee table book. I use it as very much a working book, a book that I use every weekend for recipes and for following the recipes from, and I'll just pop out and get it now. Okay, when it comes to baking then, this is the book that I was talking about. It's called Living Bread. It's by a guy called Daniel Leader. He's an American. Tradition and innovation in artisan bread making. It's absolutely excellent. It's fabulously illustrated, fabulous photographs in it, and there's recipes in it from all over the world, from Germany, from Europe, from France, Italy, Spain, Sweden, and so on, Norwegian, Norway. Fabulous book. It's probably expensive enough, but it's a sort of a book that you'd get and you'd be proud to have it for your lifetime. But what got me started on the bread, what got me started on baking at all, and I really love it, and I love baking every weekend, but what got me started was this book. And this book is Neville Maguire's book, Home Economics for Life. In this book, I didn't do a huge amount in terms of developing my culinary skills and being able to cook good meals and so on and so forth. But there's a short section in it with bread. There's an Irish soda bread in it. I started with the Irish soda bread. It was a fantastic success. I'm making it every 2 or 3 days to this day. The whole house here loves it. The whole family loves it. I love it. I never get fed up with it. It is beautiful bread. I got it out of that Home Economics for Life, Neville Maguire's book, but in addition to that, it got me onto the baking. And so there's another one in that for a plain white pan, white loaf, beautiful bread as well. And as I say, that led to one thing. So this was a kind of a gateway drug for me in terms of developing a passion for baking, and obviously led on to other things. I think I have everything there. Let me just see. So Bleak House, certainly. Ernest Hemingway, John Steinbeck, Deep Work, Peter Lynch, Flower, Water and Salt, Emile Zola, yeah, Germinal. That's very, very well worth a read, and it's probably a book that not a lot of people would have heard of. But that's it. Hope you find this video useful. If you do, give it a thumbs up down below. These are books that have moved me, have changed me, have made me think about life, have helped me, books that I've enjoyed, and some of the books I've learned a great deal from. Some of them I've got fantastic enjoyment from, but I read copiously and read 2 books at the same time at the moment, and have done for quite a long time now. I read because I read and I listen. In other words, I listen to audiobooks and I read as well on my Kindle, and obviously I buy paperbacks, although most of them I buy on Kindle now. Anyway, I hope you find that video useful. I'm not going to put a link into every single book that I've mentioned down below. I will put some links in down below if you want to go ahead and click on them and go over to Amazon, whatever, and pick up a book yourself and see what you think. But I mean, most of the Kindle books are for buttons, and I've got a huge amount of classic books from Amazon for my Kindle for free, completely for free. So the likes of Victor Hugo, the likes of the classics, the likes of Emile Zola, Honoré de Balzac, Dostoevsky, Tolstoy, most of these books you can actually get for free on Kindle. Dickens, Hardy and so on. Again, you can get most of them for free. So anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks a lot.